What's going on, Gator Nation? Back-to-back days, the Florida Gators, Billy Napier, land a commitment. Today, it's another receiver, fourth in the class, Aidan Mizell, a big one, and a legacy. Corey, what are the Gators getting?
Yeah, so it's like you say, he's a legacy kid. Both of his parents attended the University of Florida. They both ran track for the Gators. And just like Aidan does the same thing, he's a high-end athlete, does a great job of getting behind defenses, both quick and fast. Great burst off the line of scrimmage. And he's one of those kids that just pulls away from defenders fairly easy, fairly smooth in the open field. Very slippery, does a good job of making players miss. So I think right now the biggest thing for him is getting in the weight room. He's about 6'2", around 170-ish from the last time I checked. So I think the biggest thing for him is just adding weight to his frame. But overall, he's a top 100 kid with On3 Sports, an elite offer sheet. Alabama and Tennessee were the additional finalists, but you had Georgia and other schools in the mix too. So another top 100 get for the Gators, another kid that moves them closer to a top 10 recruiting class. And I think right now, you look at Florida, I think the biggest strength they have is their wide receiver class. Already elite group. I mean, you have Eugene Wilson, now Aidan Mizell, Tyree Patterson's in the class, Creed Whitmore. It's a very impressive group they have already in the fold. And then you have guys like Andy Jean, who's on the board as well from Miami, another high-end athlete. So when it's all said and done, you look at Florida's recruiting class. I think wide receiver is going to be the one group that gets magnified, at least early on. I mean, we still have another 6 months until early sign day. So the hope is, as a Florida fan, that all these guys stay put in the class. But as of right now, you look at what you have on the table right now. You can't look too far ahead. And, if you're Kerry Colbert and you're the rest of the staff, you got to be very pleased so far with the success you have recruiting the wide receiver position.
What do you think sealed the deal for Mizell? Because I know there were tweets, Tennessee, I'm home back earlier in his commitment. What do you think, I guess, sealed it for him to make him commit?
Yeah, I think it's the relationships, because I know Dan Mullen's staff, they recruited him, but they didn't offer him at the time. So Mizell kind of admitted that, early on, like, he grew up a Florida fan, obviously. I mean, both his parents went there, but it was kind of a rocky start, I guess you would say. He kind of turned away from Florida, especially at the end of the Dan Mullen era. Thought maybe he wouldn't get an offer. And it was this spring when, Billy Napier's staff came through and they offered him. And from there, once they got him on campus, that's when it started picking up and those relationships started to build. He's very high in Billy Napier's culture, the future of the program. Loves him as the head of the program, and just his vision as a head coach, just how genuine he is. And then you just have Kerry Colbert. I mean, obviously he does a great job developing wide receivers, a good resume, and those relationships really were key. And he says, him being a Florida fan growing up, he separated that about 2 years ago and treated the recruiting process like a business, which I think it's very smart. You can't really have your emotional feelings tied into that all the time, especially if you grew up a fan of a school. But I think deep down that kind of probably did bring him back some positive, memories growing up as a kid, as a Florida fan. And I'm sure his whole house has Florida, stuff all over it. So that obviously is the thing, but I think relationships are the big thing here. And I think opportunity too. You look at Florida's wide receiver room right now, I think it's it's not the deepest position on the roster. They need guys that can come in and be playmakers. And I think when you have Eugene Wilson and Mizell, two different type of wide receivers, you look at Eugene Wilson, he's a pure slot. The guy can make you miss, very shifty. And then you have Mizell, who has nice height at 6'2", but he could get behind defenses, run good seam routes, and really be that guy that stretches the field for the Gators. So you have two proven playmakers who I believe early on in their career can make an impact with the Gators. And I think just with Mizell right now is just kind of adding to his frame, getting stronger, leading up to his arrival in Gainesville.
Now, receiver position, obviously one that they addressed some needs at in the portal, getting two guys. You're going to lose like a Justin Shorter. Already 4 receivers in this class. How many could they take? You mentioned Andy Jean. There's DeQuavius, if I said that right, DeQuavius Sori as well, who's an athlete. I think they're looking at him as receiver as well, though.
Yeah, so Andy Jean would be a pure wide receiver. I mean, To me, I look at the number. I look at 5 as a number. I mean, honestly, possibly six, just depending. I mean, you got to look at, because with DeQuavius Sori, they kind of like him as an athlete. I like him as a receiver. I think he's different than a lot of these other kids. He's more of a possession receiver with strong hands, good frame. He's not a guy that's he compared him to Eugene Wilson and Aidan Mizell. They're two different type of receivers. So, but at the same time, Florida could put him at safety and kind of spread those numbers as far as maybe they're kind of too top heavy at receiver. But Andy Jean, I mean, they'll definitely take him if he wants in the class. They're hoping to seal the deal this weekend. He would be another big time get, another on-3 prospect. And we're already talking about Florida having a stellar wide receiver group. If you add Andy Jean to it, and then even if you add Story too, which on paper we have him as a wide receiver, you can make the case that's easily the best wide receiver class in the country. It's not even close. So I think right now 5 is probably the number I would be looking at. With Story, if he did go to Florida, they're kind of treating him as an athlete. So Andy Jean, as far as the question, yeah, like what's next after this? Andy Jean, that's the main guy we're kind of monitoring at this time.
Where does Florida sit with him? That's a popular name on the message board and on social media right now.
Yeah, so I think with Andy Jean, Florida was the leader right after his official visit. So he named Florida leader, in mid to late June. Has since released a top 5. And right now, I think it's Miami and Florida. I think right now, Florida has the edge, I would say, especially going into this weekend. And it's a great opportunity with a lot of momentum going on right now in Florida. Mm-hmm. They now have a quarterback in the class. So I think when you talk to Andy Jean, now you have a clear, okay, who's the person I'm going to be playing with in this class? Who's the quarterback? Before there's
a vision now where you didn't have
exactly. Like you're hopeful for Jan Rashada, but at the time, but now you actually have a quarterback who's locked in. He's not going to take any other visits. So I think there's a lot more to sell to Andy Jean now, and Florida's hopefully going to try to seal the deal this weekend. But at the same time with Miami, man, they're a real threat. It's not often when a kid decommits from a school and then actually recommits to that same one. But right. I think Miami, that's that school with him, especially now they have Rashada. I mean, say you want, they're recruiting on all cylinders. I mean, they're tearing it up on the recruiting trail right now. So it's a hometown school. That's very appealing. So I think right now you have to look at the 2 in-state schools. You also have A&M in there, Alabama, Georgia. But I think ultimately it comes down to Florida and Miami, with Florida likely holding the edge at this time.
Big weekend, back-to-back days with commitments. And I get the feeling that we're not done with good news this weekend.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So tomorrow we have Jordan Castell, the safety out of West Orange, who's going to be coming off the board. Right now I'm heavily favoring Florida there. I'd be pretty surprised if Florida's not to pick. Tennessee's another school that received a visit. They did a good job with them too. A really good offer sheet. But I think Florida right now, if you're a Florida fan, you got to be fairly confident with Jordan Castell as well. And he's another 300 prospect.
Fireworks already, and Friday Night Lights hasn't even started. Corey Bender on top of it, as always, and you heard it yesterday, $1 for 1 month. Join Gators Online. Stay tuned to all the breaking news as it happens. And it's going to be a big weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah, stay tuned. I think right now with Florida, I mean, you have the guys we mentioned, but all the guys to keep an eye on is Cameron James, Will Norman. And then you have 2024 class as well. I mean, they don't have a commitment at the time, but, Kendall Jackson's a Gainesville kid, Rapistry at Buckholz. Florida's easily the heavy front runner right there. That's a kid I'm keeping an eye on. So I think right now, I mean, you have Jordan Castell, who's going to be announcing tomorrow, that you're very hopeful for. Mm-hmm. But like you said before, it could be a very, very strong weekend for the Gators, and more guys could be on the way.
I know Gator fans are happy to hear that, and you'll have all the updates throughout the weekend for Friday Night Lights and the cookout on Saturday. Stay tuned to Gators Online. Corey Bender, Nick Delatorre.